Hi everyone, welcome back to Math with Melju. Today's video is regarding quadratic functions. So let's get into it. The first thing you see on my screen is I have four different types of equation. I have y equals x squared, y equals ax squared, y equals x squared plus k, y equals ax squared plus k. Just pay attention to my x exponent. What can you see? You can see all of my exponents are squared. So this is a place that all the quadratic functions have in common. That the highest exponent of x is 2. In a quadratic function, we always have x squared. No question. Alright, so quadratic function can be written in two different ways. It can be written as y equals x squared. It can be written as y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. It can be written as y equals a x minus h squared plus k. But first, we're gonna try with a simple one. So, a simple quadratic is this one. Y equals x squared. So remember, each of the functions, they have their own graph. The graph of y equals x squared, it looks like a U shape. Or how they call it parabola. It's called parabola. Let me graph it for you. So let's first choose our x and y. Let's first draw the table. So I'm going to choose from -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Let me continue this. Alright, so this is the 4. This is the formula. Y equals x squared. Alright, so -2 squared is 4. -1 squared is 1. 0 squared is 0. 1 squared is 1. And 2 squared is also 4. So we're gonna do the graph. Alright. So let me just put the numbers. So I'm gonna test 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2. Here we have 1, we have 2. I don't have enough space, so let me break this a little bit down. So I'm gonna add space to this one. And this was our equation. Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, and here 1, this is 4. Okay. So we're gonna graph it. Alright, the first thing you need to know is this is also called a parent quadratic function. It's the most basic function. Okay, so let's draw it. -2 this is x and this is y coordinate. X is -2, y is 4. So I have -2 here. 4 is here, so it's going to be here. Alright. We have -1 and 1. X is -1 and this is 1, so it would be here. 0, 0, 1 and 1, 2 and 4. And then let's just connect the dots with each other. So it's gonna be something like this. So this is called parabola, and it's a U shape. All right. So the other thing you need to understand is we have something called vertex. And you was gonna ask, what is vertex? Well, vertex is the lowest point of graph. In our graph in here, what is the lowest point? It's 0. You see, this is our lowest point. I don't have any dot that is lowest than this. This is the lowest one. So we say the vertex for y equals x squared graph is 0 and 0. And you know why we say 0 and 0? Because this 0 is for x and this 0 is for y. What is the lowest point for our x and what is the lowest point for our y? There's something else, we call it axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry, what is it? It's a vertical line that goes through the vertex. I'm just gonna write it down. It's a vertical line goes through vertex. What does it mean? It means it splits the graph into two mirror images. In here, what is our vertex? This one. You see? These two parts, like imagine like this. If you draw this on a paper and then this is the axis of symmetry, so you not cut the paper. Yes, you cut the paper in half, and when you pull them together, you can see they match each other. So it splits the graph into two mirror images. For this graph, the y-axis is the axis of symmetry, or we can call it x equals 0. Remember something, in parabola, this graph, a parabola graph, is always symmetric. I'm just going to write it down, symmetric. And if you want to write an axis of symmetry for this graph, you're going to write it. So for y equals x squared, axis of symmetry is the y-axis. Or we can say the x equals 0. It's up to you. But I normally say y-axis. It's the same thing. Alright. So this is the very most basic quadratic. Let's go to the second type. In the second type, we have y equals ax squared. Y equals ax squared. So as I mentioned earlier, x squared is in all of the quadratic equations. But what does a do in here? Okay, a, let me just write it down here for you. So what does a do? A changes how wide or narrow your graph is, or if your graph opens up or opens down. Okay? So how wide or narrow the graph is, or does it look up or does it opens down? Does it opens up or down? For example, in this scenario. Okay, to sum up, so A represents how wide or narrow the graph is, or whether the graph opens up or down. So you need to pay attention to something. Sometimes the value of A can be greater than 1. Someone the value of a can be less than 1 but greater than 0, and sometimes the value of a can be less than 0. So for each of these scenarios, your graph like the looking of your graph changes. Alright, so if a is greater than 1, it's a vertical stretch. Alright, it's a vertical stretch. It means your parabola gets narrower, gets smaller. Alright, your parabola gets narrower. If a, I'm gonna delete these two so I have space for all of them. If a is less than 1 but greater than 0, what happens? You have a vertical shrink. Your parabola gets wider. So your parabola gets wider, and it's a vertical shrink. What if your a is less than 0? In this case, it opens down, looking like this. Alright, it opens down. And if I want to draw, for example, like graph for this one, parabola gets wider, so it means it looks like this. And then when it gets narrower, it's going to be like this. You see? This is narrower than this one. This is wider than that one. So these are the scenarios that you need to remember. You need to memorize. You need to understand it by heart. If I want to give you an example of, drawing them for you, I can do it. So, for example, I'm going to do an example. I'm going to do y equals 2x squared. So my a here is 2. It means a is greater than 1, which means my parabola is stretched and is narrower. Must be looking narrow. Let's draw it and see. So how can I draw that? The first thing always gonna do, we need to set up a table. X and y, and the numbers -2, -1, 0, and 1 and 2. So our equation is y equals 2x squared. So I'm gonna write it down just so you guys can see. Okay, so -2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. I'm gonna write down the y, another color. -1 squared is 1. Y times 2 is 2. 0 squared is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 1 squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So let's graph it. I'm gonna come down to have more space in order to graph it. So this is our x coordinate. Let me do it better. So this is our x coordinate. You always put the x beside it so you guys know, otherwise you're gonna lose marks in your exams. And this is our y here. So let's number it. So I can see I have 8 here. So that means my y must be written as it goes as 8. So I'm going to put 8 here. I'm going to do 6 here I'm gonna do 4 here, then I'm gonna do 2 here. Then in here I'm gonna have -2 and then -4. I have 1, I have 2, I have 3, and I have 4. I have -1, -2, and then I'm gonna have -3. Okay. So when x is -2, this is your x in -2, your y is 8. It means it's here. So -2 and 8 are here. When your x is -1, your y is 2. So that means this is here. 0 and 0, 1 and 2, 2 and 8. Okay, so let's connect the dots together and see, it's correct. When a is greater than 1, you see your parabola looks narrower. It looks narrow. Okay? So, this is the part that you need to understand. Now we're going to move into the next subject about the k. Let's add k. I told you there are different forms to write a quadratic equation, and this third way to write it down is you have k included, which is like this: y equals x squared plus k. All right, so what does the k do in here? The k moves your graph up and down. Okay, it moves the graph up and down, and it's called vertical translation. This is what it's called. Let me just this one. Oh, so if in the exam they ask you what is a vertical translation, you need to say, well, or they call it vertical shift, it depends. So you can say in a quadratic function, in the equation of y equals x squared plus k, the k represents the vertical shift. The number of the k, it depends on the number of the k, so it moves, the graph goes up or the graph goes down. And same as a, but in the k scenario, so it matters your k if it's greater than 0 or if it's less than 0. So these are two scenarios for k. If your k is greater than 0, your graph moves up. And if your k is less than the 0, your graph moves down. Just think like this. For example, anything less than, like, put a, how should I say, like, put a star in your head, put a message in your head. If k is less than 0, so any number less than 0 is bottom. So that means like your graph moves down. And if k is greater than 0, which is a positive number, so it moves up. So if I want to give you an example for this one, to like graph it, this is going to be the example. So I'm going to have y equal x squared plus 3. Okay, how are we going to graph this one? And you have to find your vertex too. Do you remember what was the vertex? Let's find the vertex in this form. If you remember from the basic quadratic, when y equaled x squared, the vertex was 0 and 0. And the definition of vertex is the lowest point of graph. But in this equation, we have x squared plus 3. And you know 3 represents the k. And k, if it's more than 0, it means it's moving up. So that means the vertex cannot be 0 and 0 anymore. Also, I don't have anything beside x. So my vertex would be 0 and k. it changes the vertex. So I know my parabola is moving up. And if I want to show it to you, like the normal parabola, the basic one, looked like that. But right now our parabola is looking like this. So that's why we have the vertex as 0 and 3, which we know 3 is decay. Okay. Y equals ax squared plus k. In this scenario, you have a included and you have k included. So you have to combine both transformations. So it's going to be, if your graph is shrinked, if your graph is stretched, if your graph looks up, and if your graph looks down. And case is going to show to you if your graph is moving up or moving down. I would say look up or look down so you can know there's a difference between these two. Alright.